Oh, Chrono Cross, the 2000 Square PS1 RPG that's the sequel to perhaps mine and many others' favorite RPG of all time, Chrono Trigger. Well, there's also Radical Dreamers too, which carries some plot elements of this game, but sadly, no one gives two shits about that one. Anyway, Chrono Cross was extremely well received by critics, getting GameSpot's first 10 out of 10 review, as there's a lot of people who absolutely love this game. Yet some gamers claim that Chrono Cross is overrated. Where do I fall? Okay, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think Chrono Cross is a good game, but it's kind of overrated. Oh, come on, at least let me explain myself. Let's start this review with an honest, rational analysis of the game. First, the game story. The game story is stupid and convoluted. Aw, damn it! Okay, let's try again. The story follows our silent protagonist, Serge, who one day happens to run across an alternate universe on the beach. Okay. He soon finds that he's in a parallel world where he actually drowned as a child, so he's dead here, yet everything is eerily similar but just different. Furthermore, he meets a thief named Kid, a young girl looking for revenge against a giant panther person, Lynx. Oh yeah, those exist by the way. And she helps Serge figure out what's going on. It's up to Serge to find out how to get home, what the hell is going on, and a lot more random crap because the plot gets pretty damn twisted along the way, with giant supercomputers, time travel, and a girl who fights with Carricks because why the not? Okay, relax. Let me explain why I don't like the story of Chrono Cross, and this might take a while. Firstly, it doesn't feel focused, as tasks often feel like they don't accomplish much. The story never really feels like it's progressing toward a final conclusion. This meant that the pacing was pretty poor, as I found it hard to keep interested in the beginning, but then I could suddenly barely keep up, as dozens of facts and events were thrown at me, and then it would slow down again. Furthermore, it gets way too complicated later on. We're not talking Xenogears complicated, but it's not that far behind either. And I think insane plots were a phase with Square, because they started working on Chrono Cross in 1998, immediately after finishing Xenogears. The plot was really interesting for the 70% of it I was able to grasp, and I really liked some of the plot twists they went with, like the one where your character, well, changes halfway through, and some other character revelations, but there were so many confusing plot points and devices throughout the game that just brought the experience way down for me. I don't know, maybe it's because I didn't pay enough attention, but there were so many things going on by the end of the story that I had to consult an online FAQ just to grasp what was going on. And when you have to start doing that, it's not even worth it anymore. Furthermore, the game tries to be philosophical, dealing with ideas of fate and parallel universes, but even that stuff becomes really hammy and forced, like when you have to fight this omniscient being literally called Fate. Oh gee, I wonder if they're trying to make a statement about determinism. There were some connections to Chrono Trigger, but aside from tying up a rather minor loose end, the rest of the references to the beloved original cast can be generally summed up in one big middle finger to anybody like me who loved the characters of the original. And the ending. Oh, holy crap, the ending. First of all, getting the ending was a confusing pain in the ass that requires a walkthrough, and when I did get the good ending, I still didn't know what the hell I accomplished. It's a mess. And the characters. The story does boast about 40 recruitable and playable characters, but unlike the Suikoden series, it really feels like quantity over quality in Chrono Cross. This game has a disturbing lack of character development. I know in a game with over 40 playable characters, development is difficult, but for God's sakes, give me something! If Suikoden 1 and 2 did it with 108 characters, you can do it with less than half. I know there are some interesting and memorable characters like Harley and Lynx, but most of the recruitable characters have absolutely nothing to do with the plot. And you just go out of your way to get them, and they don't have any development, so I don't care what happens to their sorry asses. Especially this guy. He deserves anything he gets. Just think about it. Do I really need the option to spend an entire game working towards slaying an extraterrestrial godlike being with a giant pink talking dog, or another one of the dozen non-related story characters, when I could be getting more insight into more important characters, like maybe Kid? And even though I had Kid in my party as often as possible, she wasn't even that really significant. Like, she didn't really develop. She wasn't well defined. I still feel like we didn't get enough insight to her character because we don't play as her a lot of the time. As this issue of character development goes for everyone else as well. You're with Serge the whole time, but he's obviously silent, so no dice there. It was just extremely difficult to establish a connection to many of these characters, which is a large drawing point for any RPG. Just think back to the characters in Chrono Trigger. Each one of the playable characters had a place in the plot, and you worked with them almost the entire time, as everybody had at least some development and story-related content. Excluding maybe Ayla, but her society hasn't figured out plumbing, so she gets a pass. The point is, I cared about these characters that I got to know and spend time with, in an interesting but not too overly ambitious plot that I could follow. This is my main issue with Chrono Cross. Weak characters don't make me want to get invested into this ridiculously convoluted story. So, in short, I did not like the characters and narrative of Chrono Cross. But you know what was good? The battle system and overall gameplay of Chrono Cross was pretty well done, and clearly where most of the effort went. You see the enemies on screen, and this leads to the fight with 3 people battles. And there's a pretty interesting and fun elemental system that includes a lot of customization and strategy. They avoid typical RPG cliches like the level ups and the simple magic system, and the battles could be challenging and interesting as a result. In fact, my only complaint with the battles was how they didn't focus too much on double and triple text like in Trigger, but this was still fresh and fun. Oh, and also, you could run away from boss battles, which was pretty cool and entertaining. It did take away a little of the tension though, but still, really innovative. The game does have typical RPG gameplay of finding items and going to different towns, along with puzzle-filled dungeons. All done very well. You also get the New Game Plus feature with over 10 endings too, which is something good they carried over from Chrono Trigger. I never had any issues with the navigation or the puzzles because it was all just done fine, but I did feel like the game kind of had a limited world. They reused the world map twice for the regular world and the parallel world, so it almost feels like they shoved a parallel worlds gimmick into the story just to mask the fact that they kind of had a small world. That would actually make a lot of sense considering the story. No more on story. Another fantastic thing about the game are its graphics. I really appreciate how they avoided the typical medieval setting we see in RPGs and took a tropical island approach instead. The beaches are beautiful, character models are smooth and clear. Hell, this could probably pass for a PS2 game. Areas like the Temporal Vortex looked just like fantastic paintings. The Dead Sea area was eerie and unique, and the towns you visit are just fun to explore. And the music is pretty damn amazing too. Scars of Time, the opening theme, may not be just my favorite video game song of all time, it may be my favorite song of all time. It is amazing. And of course it's done by Yasunori Mitsuda, and if you've seen my other videos, you know that I think he is the friggin' man! Most of the pieces in the game are really strong and memorable, but in contrast to a lot of people calling this the best video game soundtrack of all time, I think Chrono Trigger is probably deserving of that award. My only argument for this, other than personal preference, is that Chrono Trigger had a much more varied soundtrack because of many different locations. Mitsuda had to stick to basically a tropical theme for most of this game, which isn't bad, but a lot of the songs sound a little similar and drum-based, so it's just not as varied and in my opinion strong as Chrono Trigger. To finish this off, I don't think Chrono Cross is a bad game by any means, and it's definitely one of the better RPGs on the system. However, in my opinion, it's really not as good as some people claim, because the story and characters really pale in comparison to games like Chrono Trigger. I did manage to keep playing the whole way through, and I definitely don't regret playing it, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't at least a little disappointed with it. The developers worked extremely hard to make this game innovative, so the gameplay, graphics, and sound are all fantastic. I know a lot of people really love this game, and I'll get at least some angry comments, but in my honest opinion, although Chrono Cross is a good game that I recommend if you've played the classics, a convoluted story and an unnecessary and poorly implemented use of multiple characters means that it is not one of the best the system has to offer. And with Chrono Cross being the last game in the much too short Chrono series, this may be all we get, folks. That's a very depressing thought. Ah well, here's something to end this video off on a good note. Thanks for watching.